Hi, I'm Pastor David with Declaration Church, and as I was getting ready for this video and as I was reading through Scripture and Psalms, it's really been my heart. That's where I really feel directed to go, is to be looking through the Psalms, meditating on the Psalms. In Psalm 1:1, there is a massive description of the type of person who is blessed, who receives favor from God, who's walking with him. And it starts out with three things that person doesn't do. And as I was processing and reading through this and praying through this verse, Psalm 1:1, the last portion of the verse really jumped out at me. And I started to think about Siskel and Ebert. Two great guys that were film critics that had a show you could watch, and they would talk about the latest movies that were out and give you their ideas, their suggestions, their critique of the movie. And I think that you and I are often invited into that kind of a role. We want to sit down in the theater and we want to watch life go on around us, and we want to just critique everything and everyone that we see. We want to be the critic. We want to offer our opinion and break down, tear down, whatever it is that we see, or build up and praise whatever it is that we see. We want to be the critic. We want to be the critiquer of everyone's life and the way that they're living. And a lot of times when we're invited into that kind of a role by those around us, by the society in which we live, when we're invited into that role, we become very negative. We begin to scoff at everything and everyone that is doing something that we understand to be wrong, or something that is just not acceptable to us. It's not something that we ourselves would choose to do or participate in. So we critique it, and we break it down, and we laugh, and we scoff it. We scoff at those things. And what's interesting about these three things, we've talked about two of them already, about not receiving the counsel of the wicked and walking in that counsel, not standing in the way of sinners. And then the last piece of this verse, I'm just going to read the whole thing and then we'll really emphasize the last piece. It says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers." And it's interesting to me that it starts with walking, moves to standing, and then finally closes out with sitting. You could look at it, some do, as a progression, but I think it's interesting that all three of those positions are positions we're going to take at different points throughout the day and throughout our lives. We're going to be walking at times. Sometimes we're just going to be standing, making decisions, trying to decide which direction to go. And other times we're just going to sit down and rest. And the issue comes where we begin to take on this role, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. God has not called you and I to be scoffers. We're not here to critique the way everyone else is living their life. That's not why we're here. That's not why we exist, and it's not something we're called to do. And what I find interesting is if you look at the life of Jesus, that's not the way he lived his life either. For the most part, Jesus didn't come up to individuals and tell them all the things that they were doing wrong and all the ways that they'd messed up their life. He didn't whisper to all the people around him about how all these people were terrible sinners and look at the way that they're doing this. Oh my goodness, can you believe that? And they get involved in all. No, that's not the way that Jesus operated. Instead, Jesus, a lot of times, is found showing compassion and coming alongside people to help them take a step forward in their relationship with God in a closer, better way of life. And that's what God has called you and I to do as followers of Jesus. He's called us not to be scoffers, not to be people who will critique everything, sitting in the auditorium of the world, critiquing the actions of everyone up in front of us. Instead, God has called us to come alongside of those around us and open their eyes, help them to see Jesus and to experience God's love in the way that we interact with them on a regular basis. That's what we all need, isn't it? When we're going through life and we stumble, we have some kind of a struggle, the last thing we want somebody to do is come up to us, point the finger at us, and laugh in our face and then walk away. What we're really looking for is someone to reach out their hand, lift us back to our feet, and help us get dusted off and back on the right track. And that's the way that Jesus operated, and that's what he's asking you and I to do. And that is the position that is taken by the one who is blessed. The person who is blessed doesn't sit down in that critic's role, critiquing all of the other people around them. Instead, the one who is blessed, the person who is walking in God's favor, is one that sees the people around them, looks at themselves, critiques themselves, maybe makes those changes, repents of the things they know they should not be operating in, but the one that reaches out a hand to help those around them and reveals to them the love of God in the way that they speak and the things that they do when they're interacting with those that are around them. That is what we're called to do. Avoid the seat of the critic. Avoid the seat of the scoffer so that you can move forward in God's blessing and favor. I hope this is encouraging to you. If you've been one who has received a lot of critique and just a lot of judgment that has just really weighed you down, I want to encourage you. God is looking at you with his hand extended, wanting to raise you up to your feet and introduce you to that abundant life that's available only in Jesus. And if this is something that's encouraged you and caught your attention today as a follower of Jesus, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. Give it a like. If this has been encouraging to you, if this has challenged you in any way, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe to the channel so as we continue to put out this content, you can continue to be blessed. Go out and love people the way that Jesus loved people and see what he does, not only in those people, but in you as well. Be blessed. As always, I'm Pastor David, and I'm out.